And now to Vaughn with the forecast.
Thanks, Haley. Today's forecast calls for the slow, painful death of an industry that you've definitely heard before, but probably never heard of. This secret industry plays such a big role in today's world that almost every form of media relies on it. To show you just how important it is, get a load of this. Cue the music. Cue the music. Jesus Christ, will somebody... What? Why? Okay, guys, I guess we need permission to play copyrighted music now. A license? Are you kidding me? A license? Why do I need a license? I'm just trying to play some music. What kind of 1984 bullshit is that? What? Yes, I have read the book, actually. Thanks. The business of licensing copyrighted songs for movies, TV shows, video games, etc. is an industry that generates over $700 million a year. Pretty much any time you've ever heard a copyrighted song playing in a movie, someone had to pay a licensing fee for that. They had to pay for the right to synchronize that song with their movie. They had to pay for what we call a synchronization license, or a sync license for short. Let that sink in. Now, you might be wondering how this affects social media platforms like YouTube and TikTok, where millions of people have uploaded videos containing copyrighted music. Did all of these people get a sync license? Did they pay for a sync license? Of course not. What kind of question is that? Nobody even pays for Netflix. The reason so many people get away with it on YouTube and TikTok is because these platforms have exclusive deals with record labels and other music distributors. These deals, these so-called blanket licenses, allow platforms like YouTube and TikTok to use any song from any of the artists associated with a record label, as long as they agree to give up a portion of the ad revenue on those videos. On YouTube, this system is called Content ID. And while it's far from perfect, it's definitely come a long way. When it was originally launched in 2007, YouTube was actually in the middle of a $1 billion lawsuit claiming that they weren't doing enough to fight copyright infringement. But in the 17 years since, things have definitely calmed down a little bit, probably because YouTube has done nothing but sweeten the deal for record labels. As a record label, not only can Content ID automatically identify a video that uses your music, but it also gives you the option to either block the video or just take all the ad revenue from it. It doesn't matter if the song was only used for 1% of the video, you could take 100% of the ad revenue. So as far as these blanket licenses go, YouTube's pretty much got it figured out. It gives small creators the option to use copyrighted songs without needing their own sync license, but it still gives record labels plenty of control over how their music is used. TikTok is a different story. They made headlines a few weeks ago when Universal, the biggest record label in the world, decided to not renew their blanket license with TikTok. Universal says that they did it because TikTok wasn't paying artists fairly. Which is true, but this is also coming from a company whose go-to marketing strategy seems to be make artists go viral on TikTok. So it really is this classic Mexican standoff between two of the biggest, greediest companies in the music industry. As a result, millions of TikTok videos that used music from Universal are now completely muted. Billboard recently reported that this dispute affects 60% of the most popular songs in the US. As it currently stands, there is no legal way to use a song from Drake, Taylor Swift, or any other Universal artist on TikTok. Unless, of course, you get your own sync license. Simple enough, right? Surely an industry this important would have an efficient, straightforward process for obtaining a license, right? Cue the music. Right, shit. Of course it's not that simple. While every other aspect of the music industry has slowly stepped into the 21st century, sync licensing got left in the Stone Ages. Legally listening to a song has never been easier. Legally playing a song in public has never been easier. And legally covering a song has also never been easier. You know, each of these fundamental aspects of the music industry have efficient, straightforward processes that make life easy for everyone. But for some reason, no such process exists for sync licensing. For example, let's say you wanted to use the song God's Plan in your TikTok video. Obviously, TikTok no longer has a blanket license from Universal, so you're going to have to license it yourself. To do that, you're actually going to need to get two licenses. The first one is called a master recording license, and the reason you need that one is because you're not just going to use a cover of God's Plan in your video, you're going to use the official master recording of the song. But since the record label technically owns the exclusive rights to distribute that version of the song, you're going to have to clear it with them first. That sounds fun. Record labels are notoriously easy to work with. The second license you're going to need is called a sync license, which, as we've discussed, gives you the permission to synchronize the song with your video. To do that, you're actually going to need to get permission from every single songwriter involved in the song. But here's the catch. You can't necessarily just reach out directly to the songwriters. You'd usually be working with the publishing companies that represent them. which in many cases are owned by the record label. How convenient. This process of contacting and negotiating with the record label and the publishing companies is 100% manual. You are literally sending emails and making phone calls to dozens of people, explaining in excruciating detail how the song is going to be used in your video. And the whole time, you are just praying that not only are the record label and every single songwriter on board, but also in agreement on what they should charge you. And that's assuming they even respond in the first place. Now you might be saying, so what? I'm not some media company. I don't need to license songs. Like, this process seems horribly outdated, but it just doesn't affect me. Well, actually, it does, you big dumb idiot. It does affect you. At risk of sounding like a Woodstock attendee, music, connects us, man. It really is the backbone of human connection. Not only is music an almost exclusively human experience, but it is also so deeply tethered in our brain chemistry that it can make our memories literally unforgettable. There's stories about Alzheimer's patients who have trouble remembering their family members, but as soon as a familiar song starts playing, the memories just start flooding back. There's some research that suggests knowing how to play an instrument can make you 64% less likely to develop dementia. Now, I don't personally know how to play any instruments, but I have heard that knowing how to play one can make you 60% less likely to develop dementia. There's a reason these companies go through so much effort to license popular songs. It's because it makes people remember you. Wrangler is a brand I don't care about. I don't care what brand of jeans I wear, but I will never forget this Wrangler ad from 2005. The boys are back in town? Hell yeah, man. Jeans. This is literally the only reason I ever think about the Wrangler brand. And apparently it works the other way around too. A recognizable brand can make an otherwise forgettable song unforgettable. Apparently there's a group of people out there who know the song Move Along by the All American Rejects as the song from the Bionicles commercial. But the world has changed a lot since then. You don't exactly have to have a doctorate in anthropology to point out that the internet has in many ways made us less connected to each other. It's not a hot take for me to point out that these social media algorithms give us a hyper-individualized experience of the world. Our understanding of the world comes from our little personalized slice of the internet, and as a result, shared interests are a lot harder to come by than they were 20 years ago. And for people whose job it is to understand what's popular, like people who license songs for movies and TV shows, this makes their job extremely difficult and more important than ever. Sync licensing is more important now than it ever has been. It's one of the last things that can reliably connect us in an increasingly disconnected world. Yes, sync licensing is a relatively niche industry. Compared to the rest of the music industry, it's a drop in the bucket, 2% of the whole pie. But who's to say it wouldn't make up a bigger piece of the pie if it weren't such a nightmare? Sync licensing deserves some love. So what can actually be done? Now, I went to college, as you can tell. And while I was there, I tried to tackle that very question. You see, I'm someone who likes to cosplay as a bold risk taker, but deep down, I'm a risk-averse little ball of anxiety. So I went to college to study entrepreneurship. While I was there, throughout my senior year, I put together the 85-page business plan for a software startup that could potentially revolutionize the music industry. The way it works is this software would use machine learning to analyze a record company's previous sync licenses so that it can automatically respond to new license requests. So going back to our example, if you still wanted to license the song God's Plan for your TikTok video, you would just put in some information about your video, how the song is going to be used, and instantly the software could tell you what you can expect to pay for that license based on Universal's previous deals. From there, most of the hard work is already done, and Universal just has to go in and approve the request, deny the request, or decide to negotiate further. So, a response or a request like yours would probably never get a response in the first place under the current system. Record labels know that for something as small as a TikTok video, it's not worth their time to even respond. But something like this would effectively level the playing field, not only giving small creators the opportunity to license popular songs, but also enabling record labels to respond to small requests like that efficiently. So, there's a little more nuance to it, obviously, as you can tell, but that's the gist. I presented it to some sharks at the end of my senior year, and they didn't give me any money, but they did give me this. So obviously I was pretty stoked, but it did seem a little too good to be true. If the problem is this obvious, why has nobody tried this idea yet? Sure, I had done research and expert interviews and financial projections, but at the end of the day, I didn't have any actual professional experience in the music industry. Well, that was almost 5 years ago, and since then, according to this article from Music Business Worldwide, some people have actually tried something similar. Apparently these companies called sync retailers have started popping up, but for the most part, they're not doing too hot, which is kind of what they get for stealing my idea, but still a bummer nonetheless. The success of this business model relies 100% on the ability to partner with major record labels and music publishers. So far, none of these sync retailers have been able to do that, and as a result, there's still no easy way to license popular songs. There are 3 things that are certain in this life: death, taxes, and major record labels being unwilling to negotiate. You can always count on that one. 60% of the most popular songs in the country are now unusable on TikTok because of how broken and complex the sync licensing process is. YouTube's Content ID system shows us that blanket licenses can be a good compromise, but the recent fallout between TikTok and Universal shows us that these label-specific deals are just a symptom of a larger problem. Ask yourself this: why is it that anybody can get permission to do a cover of God's Plan in just a few clicks, but getting permission to use the song in a TikTok video would be nearly impossible? The answer, as it turns out, is simpler than you might think. Ronald Reagan, if you're watching this, you might just want to go back to bed, buddy. The answer is organized labor. In the early 1900s, a guy named Vincent Hoover was sitting in a New York restaurant when, to his surprise, he heard a song playing that he had personally written. Pretty cool, right? Wrong. Vincent was pissed. He wasn't getting paid anything for that. How often was this happening to other songwriters? There's no way you can expect one person to track down all the places playing their music, right? So Vincent got together with a bunch of his music buddies and started the first performing rights organization, or PRO, in the United States. Thanks to Vincent, not only do musicians now have somebody to track down all this revenue for them, but retail businesses and radio stations also have an easy way to play music without having to get permission for every single song. PROs cut out all that dirty work by selling blanket licenses that apply to all the songs by all of the songwriters that they represent. No exaggeration, PROs revolutionized the music industry. Like, without PROs, something like the Universal TikTok dispute would have happened 30 years ago between Universal and a major radio network. Can you imagine if it was 1994 and 60% of the most popular songs in the country weren't allowed on the radio? So I'm not going to sit here and act like a PRO for sync licensing is this magic wand that would instantly solve everything. Unfortunately, it's a little more tricky than that because most major artists don't own their masters. And as we now know, getting a sync license also involves getting the master recording license. So getting a PRO for sync licensing would require either negotiating with major record labels, we all know how well that goes, or getting new copyright legislation from Congress. Don't hold your breath on that one either. But until then, all we can really do is try to find a silver lining. On the bright side, the fact that popular music is so hard to license means that a lot of smaller independent artists have started filling the gaps. Why go through the trouble of licensing a popular song with 17 different songwriters when you can just license a song from a less popular artist who writes all their songs and owns their masters? So while it might seem like all hope is lost, this could be the start of a new chapter. TikTok has already played a huge role in opening doors for small artists. Whether they know it or not, they might have just left another door wide open. Until the next forecast, stay tuned. Back to you, Haley.